I would call to order the Village of Westmont Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Wednesday, November 10th, 2010. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Van Buren is here. Commissioner Pill?
Here.
Commissioner Anton?
Here.
Commissioner Thomas?
Here.
Commissioner Fleet?
Here.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Here.
And Chairman Richard?
Here.
We have a quorum.
If we would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. While I have you standing, anybody who will give testimony tonight, you have to be sworn in, so I swear that any testimony I give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Okay. I would ask to silence any and all electronic devices. And when you come up to the podium, if you would sign in and give us your name, please. Okay, first item of business is approval of the minutes of our October 13th meeting.
So moved. Second.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Anton, seconded by Commissioner Pill. Question on the motion? May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Richard.
Yes. Okay, the minutes as printed are hereby adopted. Under open hearing, new business, planning and zoning item 10-033, Melda Gallagher of Insight RE on behalf of AT&T regarding the property located at 233 West 63rd for the following. A, zoning code variance request to permit more than 3 antenna on a structure.
Good evening. My name is Ray Schenkel. I'm here on behalf of Imelda Gallagher, representing AT&T Wireless. And yes, very simple request. Jen did a nice job with the staff report. We're looking to modify our AT&T is looking to modify their existing installation at this site and replace or upgrade its antennas and add 3 new antennas. So it's an existing structure, which is a co-location, and they're just looking to modify their antenna array, which is already there and part of the visual landscape. So it's a very minimal to no visual impact. So we're hoping you'll accept our variance.
And the reason you need the variance is?
To provide additional coverage, to improve and to provide the additional coverage. It's LTE and UMTS, which basically, in a nutshell, is allowing them to provide new items that they'll be offering on their phones, video and other types of fancy things that you're going to be able to do on your phone. So they need to add this equipment in order to provide those services in that area.
And
they're doing it across Chicago.
And village ordinance demands that you apply for a variance since you're exceeding the number of antennas.
That is correct.
Okay. Seeing nobody in the public, we will close the public comment, and we'll start with Commissioner Thomas.
On the upgrading, you replacing 7 antenna with 7 new?
Yes, they're all panel antennas, pretty much very similar in size and shape. You wouldn't be able to notice it from the ground, and then adding 3 new ones.
And the 3 new ones are for the new services?
That's for the LTE, correct?
That's all I have.
Commissioner Pill,
I have no problem and no questions.
Commissioner Anton,
No questions.
Commissioner Van Buren,
No question.
Commissioner Fidesco.
These are basically on the same frame as before. You're just replacing the existing ones.
That is correct. It's an antenna array that already exists.
Yeah, okay. No questions further.
Commissioner Fleet,
No questions.
and the chairman has no questions. Okay, we have a request for a variance, so we need a reading of the findings of fact.
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it's located. The property contains 3 existing monopole towers erected for the purpose of hosting cellular and related antennas. These towers pre-exist the annexation of the property to the village. The purpose of these additional antennas is to improve network coverage and take advantage of improving technologies in order to benefit the public. The owner of the property could not yield a reasonable return on this investment if cellular companies were limited to their existing antennas and technologies on this tower.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. Unanimous in agreement.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The purpose of these additional antennas is to improve network coverage and take advantage of newer technologies. This request is being made by the cellular company, and the variance sought is not for the sole purpose of improving the owner's financial condition as a result of owning these towers. Additionally, this tower is structurally able to support these 3 additional antennas.
If you agree with this, please raise your hand. We are unanimous in agreement.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The monopole tower with numerous antennas has existed on the property since at least 1990. The towers are not located adjacent to any residential or business structures on adjacent properties. This tower and antennas are located in the southeast corner of the property, away from 63rd Street. The addition of 3 additional antennas to this existing tower will not alter the essential character of the area.
If you agree with this, we are unanimous in agreement. The findings of fact for a variance are hereby approved and adopted. I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees. Item A, a zoning code variance request to permit more than 3 antenna on a structure.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Anton, seconded by Commissioner Fidesco. Question on the motion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas? Yes. Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. All right, sir, you have our recommendation for approval, and staff can tell you when you go before a committee of the whole on a Thursday evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Good luck to you. Next item on the agenda, Planning and Zoning Item 10-034, Village of Westmont regarding zoning code text amendment as follows. A, amendments to Section 7.02 Business District provisions. B, amendments to Section 13-.07 variances. C, amendments to Section 13.09 special uses. D, amendments to Section 13.12 amendments. May we have the village attorney lead us through this?
Yes, sir. This started off with the village board having a discussion about special uses, and when I have been drafting the ordinances, we've been placing as a special condition, and oftentimes it's recommended by you, certain conditions under which the special use would terminate, whether there's a change of ownership or a cessation of use of the business. And it started to get cumbersome to draft that into every ordinance, and thought it'd be better just to do a text amendment to address every situation and treat every situation equally. And it was raised with the village board, so they directed me to draft this text amendment. In the process of looking at all of the language applicable to special uses, I also looked at the other language in chapter or section Article 13 and just cleaned up some language, and I can go through it quickly. There's also a process that the village board goes through in issuing development permits to new uses and development in the central business district. Those requests don't come to the Planning and Zoning Commission, but it's a provision that we thought should be regulated in the zoning ordinance, thus this is before you. And the purpose is to establish some standards that the village board can look at when they grant or deny these development permits. Right now, there are no standards. The village board has denied some developments that want to come in and have articulated the reasons, but they really don't have anything to fall back on if there's litigation by way of an ordinance. So that's what prompted that change. I guess starting with that then, in section 702, you have the draft development permit language, and essentially subsection 3, I think, is the gist of it, in that it basically says here's the non-exclusive list of criteria that the board will consider, and it's things such as aesthetics, health and safety, such that construction repairs are building code compliant, promotion of the primary development goal of adding to the sales tax base through high quality retail, upscale and family-oriented sit-down restaurants and specialty shops. And the last one, if a business does not contribute to the sales tax base, it can nevertheless be approved if it otherwise attracts shoppers and diners to the B1 district, adds to the positive mix of businesses within the downtown, and fills space that would otherwise be vacant. So as to that issue, I don't know if there are any questions. If anyone has any additional criteria or rewording. If you do, between now and when the board gets to this, you can shoot me an email. Moving on then to section 1307, variations. This is really just cleaning up a little bit of the language to make sure that all of the various sections addressing variances, special uses, and amendments are consistent with each other. As an example, it says that applications have to be submitted to the village clerk, and that's not really how the process works. They're submitted to the Economic Development Department. Added language that construction or structural alterations pursuant to a variance have to be diligently pursued to completion, or the Board of Trustees may revoke the variance. And that's just so project doesn't languish, and 10 years later they claim they had a variance and want to exercise it. And then lastly, I added some language that the board can impose special conditions on a variance. And normally that's only done with special uses, and it's acknowledged by the courts as valid for special uses. As a home rule community, we've got a little more leeway in imposing special conditions on variances. I don't know too often how it would happen, but I can imagine situations where you might want to require a fence to go in for extra screening or landscaping or whatever. The village would have the ability to do that. Any questions on the variance amendments? God, you guys are easy.
John, just one thing, just the word proscribed. Is it prescribed or proscribed?
I don't know.
Just-
I'll look.
Take a check on that, if that's what we really want to say.
Right.
And it appears in, under 1307 and 1309. At least those two places I found it.
Right. Okay.
John, if we may,
Oh, 1311.
where it reads, the Board of Trustees may by ordinance impose special conditions upon variance approval. What special conditions would you, have any been delineated yet, or?
He did
Is this all
just
to be
say
done?
one.
Yeah, I just give an example. For example, the village board may wish to impose a fence requirement for screening. If someone's building something, let's say encroaches into the side yard setback, it's a little close to a neighbor, they may say, fine, we'll grant you the variance, but we want you to install a privacy fence.
Okay, then in other words, there are no set special conditions that they can come up as the board sees fit.
Correct. It's
It's
case-by-case
just given
basis.
Okay,
License to-
I understand.
Okay. Special uses. There's some more significant changes to this section. Some of the initial changes that you can go through are, let's see, in section C1, that's more procedural, making sure the various sections are consistent with each other. I added a new C3 that states that there's a 2-year waiting period if a special use has been denied before an applicant can reapply.
Does that mean the same applicant, or could it be another applicant?
Good question. It says, right now, it says no applicant.
No, yeah, okay, that's
So that would
right,
be
I did read that.
Any applicant, whether it's the same or a different one. And I think it's beneficial so you don't get someone coming in every 6 months asking for the same request. Interestingly, there were no standards listed in the zoning ordinance for special use approval. In the variance section, you have those 3 major
Criteria.
standards, and then you've got a list of about 9 other ancillary standards to look at. In working in other communities, there are these standards that are typically used that have kind of developed by case law over time. And I am suggesting that we use these standards and change our findings of fact to reflect these standards. Moving to section E, decisions, again, added language about the board's ability to impose special conditions, something it does regularly with this body's assistance. And then the real purpose of the amendment as directed by the village board is found in section F. And this may generate some discussion. It basically talks about circumstances under which a special use will terminate. I made these up, so any help, thoughts would be great. I don't know about whether, if there's a change of ownership, whether it's good or bad to force a special use to terminate and a new owner to come in and apply for that special use. I know Shannon, in the staff summary, suggested it may be a good idea to make sure the applicant adheres to the same standards as operating the same type of business as the former applicant who received the approval. It also can be viewed as a hindrance on the easy transfer of ownership or assets of a business. The other, besides a change, and the 75%, again, that's a number I thought was reasonable. That would basically, if it's a substantial sale of assets, 75% or more, that would cause the trigger. You may want to make it 100%, you may want to make it 50%. If the use ceases for 90 days or more, special use terminates. And I guess those are really the two conditions under which a special use would terminate. And then there's language about commencing construction and completing it to completion for a special use to be valid.
John, under F2, I would have a problem. Special use shall automatically terminate upon the sale or transfer of at least 75% of the special use holder's assets or stock. If someone, that would preclude someone from selling an ongoing business.
It would create a hurdle, yes.
I think that would perhaps throw an impediment in the successful sale of a property then.
It would certainly.
Because there could be no guarantee that someone's going to enter into a sale with something and then they get turned down by the village board.
Well, they would have to do a contingent sale and come before the board, and it gives you a chance, another shot at.
But now you're putting a sale in limbo, and if there's mortgages or money involved, now
Yeah, it could be
you're
tough,
stringing
yeah.
this out.
Kill the deal.
Now, having done a number of asset sales and purchases, it's usually a bit of a process anyhow to get through certain due diligence for any sort of decent size purchase, from inventory checking to licensing checking to zoning, and sometimes they may get done in a month and sometimes it's 6 months or longer. So it's not an unreasonable hurdle, but it is a hurdle. That alone is probably 3 months from the time they learn about the requirement to when they gather the information, apply, it's published for a public hearing, they come before this body, and then the village board. I'd say it's probably at least 3 months.
About 60 to 90 days.
For example, all automotive-related enterprises require special use. And let's say that one of our major dealerships sells, which has happened in the last, I'd say 6 years. And the new buyer would then have to make part of it. This was his contingent sale would have to come before the board. And
Right.
now, they didn't before. Mercedes sold, and a new owner took over, AutoNation took over from the one that we moved to Naperville. Stayed Mercedes, 2 different owners. Never came to us, probably didn't come to the village board. This would require those people, even though everything looked the same, it's the same thing. would require them
What's
to
the,
make.
I don't get the gain there. I mean, if it's Mercedes to Mercedes, I think that's okay. I would have a problem if it was Mercedes to, now it's gonna be, you know, whatever, Hyundai or something, you're gonna completely change the building around, or the whoever the vendor's gonna be. But if I think it's Mercedes to Mercedes, I mean, what do we care?
But let's say it's a used car dealership, and you're not happy with the aesthetics of the lot, the way they're operating their business, you're getting complaints from residents who've had bad service, you don't like that use, and you look around at surrounding conditions, and they've maybe changed since when the approval was made. This is a chance for the village to assert itself into the process. That's one of the benefits in having this language in there. But it does create a hardship, a hurdle for the owner who wants to sell his business.
I think you could also open yourself to litigation, or if you were to deny a sale for an ongoing business, even if you don't like it, to another party that's going to maintain the business strictly the way it has been.
Right, you'd have to go through the factors and analyze everything on a case-by-case basis, and I've been pretty conservative in telling the village board and this body that, you know, be careful. If it's been operating for years and there haven't been problems, you're gonna be hard-pressed to come up with justifiable reasons for denying it. But it's an opportunity for you to require them to submit a site plan, impose special conditions, whether it's screening or new lighting or whatever, clean a place up and, you know, restrict their operations.
Okay, I could go along with that, makes sense.
How about the 4 on there, the null and void for 90 days? It takes sometimes 90 days to get through the permitting process. If you got approved after that, and then you went to get your permit, it could take a while. That's on number 4.
Well, it says 90 days unless the delay is due to construction or alteration of any structures in connection with the special uses. And then it's 12
12 months
months
of board approval.
if any construction is not substantially completed. And then it has language that they can apply for an extension with good cause shown. Again, the 12 months can certainly be expanded to a greater time period, can be 24 months.
I wouldn't suggest that. Most construction companies can get started and move in 12 months unless they're having extreme difficulty where the project's probably not going to succeed anyways.
Well, this talks about substantial completion within 12 months. You know, I know, we just went through the Walgreens. Walgreens is planning to be substantially completed within 12 months. So that's reasonable. If
Yeah.
it's a larger project, I think the board can take that into account when they pass the ordinance and right away grant them an extension if needed.
I just know going through board stuff, and with me getting permits, sometimes it takes more than 90 days. I think my house was 4 months here.
I think the way it's written, though, is you have to get started within 90 days. You have to be operational within 90 days unless you're doing construction. And then with the construction, if that's the case, you just have to be done within 12 months. And you're right, you could get stuck with DuPage County
Oh, yeah.
stormwater or
yeah.
wetlands issues and could take 24 months, but that's good cause shown, you get an extension.
Show it, okay.
Any other thoughts on that section? And then the last section is 13.11 amendments. And again, this is just cleaning up the language to be consistent with the other sections as far as procedures for processing this. And no real substantive changes there.
Seems fairly straightforward.
Can you perhaps just explain D2? I don't understand the 20%.
That's by state statute, so it's in the Illinois Municipal Code, and it's a provision where if owners of property adjacent to, across the street, whatever, want to object, they can file a written petition objecting to a proposed map amendment, file it with the village, and trigger a supermajority vote.
We don't see that too often, do we?
I can't recall ever seeing it.
I haven't either, okay. That's why it was so unusual, unfamiliar to me, I guess.
What's interesting is it's a 2/3 vote that's required by state statute, which is 4 out of 6 trustees. We need 4 out of 6 trustees to approve a matter anyhow. And it says members of the Board
Well,
of Trustees.
technically, you can get away with a 3+3 and the mayor can break the tie.
Exactly, so that's where it would come into play.
So you go from 4-3 to 4-2. Okay, thank you.
That's on my end.
Good job, John.
We'll start with Commissioner Fleet. You have any questions on this?
Other than just the word proscribed versus prescribed, or we have the right word in there? That's all I got.
Commissioner Fidesco?
And I had the same question about the 20%. I couldn't understand that, and I was a little bit confused, but other than that, I think everything's okay.
Okay, Commissioner Van Buren?
I'm okay with it.
Commissioner Anton?
Yeah, with it, Joe.
Commissioner Pill?
Fine, thank you.
Commissioner Thomas?
Good.
And I also am quite satisfied.
By the way, the 20% language was already in there. I just made it more corresponding to what the actual statutory language is.
Okay, under Planning and Zoning, item 10-034, I would entertain a motion to recommend approval to the Board of Trustees, zoning code text amendments, amendments to section 7.02, amendment to section 13.07, amendment to section 13.09, and amendment to section 13.12.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Anton. Question on the motion?
Yes.
Roll call.
Not sure if D was .11 as opposed
I
to.
think, yeah, it's inconsistent. On the other document, it says 13.11.
You're absolutely right.
That's correct. There was a typo in the original document, and so what you see in your staff report is actually the corrected number, 13.11, I believe.
Which number is correct, Shannon?
13.11.
13.11. Amend the motion to show as D 13.11. Okay with the second?
Sure.
Okay, motion is amended. Okay, may we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fleet?
Yes.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Anton?
Yes.
And Chairman Richard?
Yes. Anybody have anything come before the board? Well, before we sign off for the night, I want to,
Did we do the vote?
we did.
Okay.
Before we adjourn, I just want to wish all my fellow Marines out there happy birthday and Semper Fi.
Semper Fi.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Pill, seconded by Commissioner Anton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.